There is something deeply human about believing that if God is about to change our lives, He will announce it with unmistakable drama. We imagine thunder in the sky, extraordinary signs, or a moment so obvious that no one could possibly miss it. Yet history, scripture, and even our own experience reveal a different pattern. God often works through what appears ordinary before it becomes extraordinary. The greatest turning points rarely arrive wearing the clothing of miracles. They often appear as ordinary conversations, familiar places, and people who seem to enter our lives without fanfare. That is why, if you hear the words, "God is sending a woman tomorrow," your first instinct should not be to scan the horizon for something spectacular. Your first responsibility is to prepare your heart to recognize what heaven may quietly place before you. Think about how easily the human mind overlooks what it has already decided cannot be important. Psychology calls this selective attention. We notice what confirms our expectations and ignore everything else. If you expect God to work only through dramatic events, you may completely miss the quiet opportunity standing directly in front of you. The tragedy is not that God failed to answer. The tragedy is that the answer arrived in a form you never expected. Divine opportunities are often missed, not because they are absent, but because our expectations are too narrow to recognize them. This principle extends far beyond relationships. Every meaningful transformation in life begins with awareness. Before circumstances change, perception changes. Before doors open, vision expands. Before you receive something new, you learn to see differently. That is why spiritual maturity is less about predicting the future and more about becoming attentive to the present. Tomorrow is not important simply because another day is coming. It matters because every new day carries possibilities that did not exist before. Whether those possibilities become reality depends largely on your willingness to remain awake in both mind and spirit. Now imagine for a moment that the woman God intends to bring into your life is also living an ordinary day. She has responsibilities, disappointments, unanswered prayers, and hopes that no one else fully understands. She is not waiting for dramatic music to begin playing any more than you are. She is simply walking through the life God has given her, unaware that tomorrow may contain an encounter designed long before either of you recognized its significance. That thought should humble you. It reminds us that God's plans involve more than our own desires. Every divine appointment connects two stories that have been developing independently under the same sovereign hand. There is also an important lesson about patience hidden within this idea. Many people become so desperate for the future that they become blind to the present. They chase signs instead of cultivating character. They obsess over timing while neglecting wisdom. But the people who experience the deepest relationships are rarely those who spend every moment searching. They are the ones becoming someone capable of recognizing and sustaining the blessing when it arrives. Readiness is never passive. It is built through integrity, emotional maturity, gratitude, and faithfulness in ordinary moments. Consider how often fear disguises itself as caution. Past disappointments convince us to keep emotional distance. Previous heartbreak teaches us to question every new possibility. We begin protecting ourselves so carefully that we unintentionally block the very connection we have been praying for. While wisdom is essential, fear has a way of wearing wisdom's clothing. The challenge is learning to distinguish between discernment and self-protection. Discernment keeps your heart open while guiding it wisely. Fear closes the heart before love ever has the chance to enter. If tomorrow truly holds an important encounter, the greatest preparation is not external, it is internal. Walk into the day with peace instead of anxiety. Speak with kindness instead of suspicion. Listen more than you talk. Pay attention to people instead of rushing past them. Every interaction becomes an opportunity when your heart remains available to God's direction. Whether the meeting happens in a workplace, a store, a place of worship, or somewhere completely unexpected, is less important than the condition of the person who arrives there. Your awareness may become the bridge between an ordinary moment and an extraordinary future. Remember, God's greatest gifts often arrive quietly, but they never arrive without purpose. The question is not whether tomorrow holds possibility. The question is whether you will have the wisdom to recognize it when it stands before you. Because the life God changes tomorrow is first transformed by the heart that chooses to be ready today. Most people believe that when God intends to bring two lives together, he simply chooses a date, arranges a meeting, and everything falls into place. It sounds comforting, but it overlooks something essential about the way God works. Divine timing is never just about the calendar. It is about preparation. Before God joins two paths, he often spends years shaping each traveler separately. That means if God is sending a woman into your life tomorrow, the real story did not begin tomorrow. It began long before either of you realized you were being prepared for one another. Think about the seasons you once wished would end, the loneliness that seemed unbearable, the unanswered prayers that made you question whether God had forgotten you, the relationships that failed despite your best efforts. At the time, each experience felt like a setback. But what if those moments were not evidence of God's absence? What if they were evidence of his patience? There is a profound difference between being denied something and being prepared for something. Human beings often confuse the two because we judge life by immediate results, while God shapes life according to eternal purpose. Psychologically, we know that every meaningful experience leaves a mark on the mind. Pain changes perception. Success builds confidence. Failure creates humility. Every conversation, every disappointment, every unexpected victory contributes to the person you become. The question is not whether life changes you. The question is whether those changes move you toward wisdom or toward bitterness. This is where spiritual growth becomes decisive. God does not waste experiences. Even the seasons you would erase from your memory can become the very tools he uses to develop your character. Imagine trying to build a house on unstable ground. No matter how beautiful the design, it cannot endure because the foundation is weak. Relationships work the same way. Many people pray for a life partner while neglecting the foundation that will sustain the relationship once it arrives. They ask God to change their circumstances before allowing him to transform their character. But lasting love is not built on excitement alone. It is built on emotional maturity, self-control, forgiveness, humility, and the willingness to grow together. Those qualities are rarely developed during moments of comfort. They are forged in seasons of waiting. Now consider the woman who may be entering your life. She has her own story. She has known disappointment, wrestled with uncertainty, celebrated victories, and carried burdens that others never saw. While you were learning your lessons, she was learning hers. While you were discovering patience, she was discovering resilience. While you were praying for answers, she was being shaped by questions of her own. Neither of you could see the complete picture because preparation often happens in isolation. Yet the remarkable truth is that God can work on two lives at the same time without either person realizing that their journeys are quietly moving toward the same destination. This is why comparison becomes so dangerous. It is easy to look at someone else's relationship and wonder why their prayers seem to have been answered first. But comparison assumes that everyone is attending the same lesson at the same moment. They are not. Every life follows a unique path of development. God's purpose is not to make your journey identical to someone else's. His purpose is to make your journey complete. What appears to be a delay may actually be protection from entering a season before your heart is ready to handle it. There is also a deeper philosophical truth hidden here. We often think love is something we find, as though it exists outside of us, waiting to be discovered. But genuine love is also something we become capable of giving. The quality of the relationship you receive is deeply connected to the quality of the person you become. This is why personal transformation is never separate from relational blessing. They are intertwined. As your perspective changes, your choices improve. As your character deepens, your relationships become healthier. Preparation is not merely about waiting for the right person. It is about becoming the right person. Perhaps that is the greatest misunderstanding about divine timing. People imagine that tomorrow alone carries all the significance, when in reality, tomorrow is simply the visible result of countless invisible days that came before it. Every act of faith, every moment of perseverance, every decision to trust God instead of surrendering to despair has been shaping the person who will step into that encounter. Nothing has been wasted. Every lesson has had a purpose even when you could not understand it. So if tomorrow truly brings someone into your life, don't assume the miracle begins with the meeting. The miracle began the day God refused to let your unfinished story become your final story. He was preparing both of you long before either of you knew the other's name. God's greatest relationships are not created in a single moment. They are revealed after years of unseen preparation. One of the deepest desires of the human heart is not simply to be noticed, it is to be truly seen. There is an enormous difference between the two. People notice appearance, accomplishments, and status every day. They notice the clothes you wear, the work you do, the confidence you project, and the image you present to the world. But being seen is something far more profound. It means someone recognizes the person beneath the performance. They see your character before your reputation, your purpose before your position, and your potential before your current circumstances. If God is sending a woman into your life, one of the greatest signs may not be how impressed she is by you, but how deeply she understands you. This is where many people make a critical mistake. They spend years trying to become more impressive instead of becoming more authentic. Society teaches us that value comes from standing out, from collecting achievements, or from creating an image that others admire. Yet the relationships that endure are rarely built on admiration alone. They are built on understanding. Admiration can begin a conversation, but only understanding can sustain a lifetime together. Think about the people who misunderstood you in the past. Perhaps they judged you too quickly. Perhaps they defined you by one mistake, one failure, or one difficult season. Human beings often form conclusions with very little evidence. Our minds naturally create stories about people based on limited information. Psychology calls this cognitive bias. We fill in the gaps with assumptions rather than truth. That is why so many meaningful people pass through each other's lives unnoticed. They are seen through the lens of expectation instead of reality. But God's perspective is entirely different. Throughout history, He has consistently looked beyond what others considered important. While people focused on outward appearance, God focused on the heart. While crowds celebrated strength, God often chose humility. While the world rewarded popularity, God elevated faithfulness. This pattern reminds us that divine wisdom rarely follows human standards. The people God brings into our lives are often those who recognize values that the world overlooks. Imagine meeting someone who is not captivated by your success, but by your integrity. Someone who pays attention to the way you treat people when no one is watching. Someone who notices your patience during difficult moments. Your kindness toward strangers. Your willingness to remain faithful when there is no applause. These qualities are invisible to many people because they require time and attention to discover. Yet they are precisely the qualities that determine whether a relationship will survive life's inevitable challenges. The woman God sends will not be searching for perfection because she understands that perfection does not exist. Instead, she will recognize sincerity. She will understand that strength is not the absence of weakness, but the courage to grow through it. She will see that wisdom often comes from wounds that have healed rather than from a life that has never known pain. This kind of recognition creates trust because it is rooted in reality instead of illusion. There is also a lesson here about your own responsibility. If you desire someone who truly sees you, you must also learn to see others beyond the surface. It is easy to become so focused on what someone looks like, what they own, or how they present themselves that you overlook the deeper qualities that actually matter. Lasting relationships require mutual vision. Both people must learn to value character over charm, purpose over popularity, and consistency over temporary excitement. The ability to recognize depth in another person begins with developing depth within yourself. Many relationships fail because both individuals spend their energy trying to be accepted instead of trying to understand. They speak more than they listen. They defend themselves more than they seek empathy. They become experts at presenting an attractive version of themselves while hiding the parts that need compassion and growth. Yet authentic connection begins the moment two people stop performing and start being honest. Vulnerability is not weakness. Properly guided by wisdom, it becomes the foundation of genuine intimacy. If tomorrow introduces someone significant into your life, remember that the greatest gift is not finding someone who thinks you are flawless. The greatest gift is finding someone who recognizes your imperfections, sees your God-given purpose, and encourages you to become the person you were created to be. That kind of relationship does not imprison you in your past, it calls you toward your future. So don't ask whether someone will be impressed by you, ask whether they recognize the values that truly matter. Because appearances fade, achievements change, and circumstances come and go. But character, faith, and purpose remain. Those are the qualities that heaven honors, and they are the qualities that a God-appointed relationship will always be built upon. The right person will not simply admire who you appear to be, they will recognize who God is shaping you to become. Life is rarely changed by one dramatic event alone. More often, it is transformed by a single decision made in what appears to be an ordinary moment. That is one of the great paradoxes of human existence. We spend years waiting for extraordinary opportunities, yet when they finally arrive, they often look so ordinary that we are tempted to overlook them. If God is sending a woman into your life tomorrow, the meeting itself may not be the defining moment. The defining moment may be your response. Consider how many opportunities have been lost, not because they never appeared, but because fear spoke louder than faith. Human beings are remarkably skilled at talking themselves out of possibilities. We hesitate because we fear rejection. We remain silent because we assume the outcome before the conversation even begins. We allow yesterday's disappointments to dictate tomorrow's choices. Without realizing it, we begin living from old wounds instead of new hope. Psychologists often describe this as emotional conditioning. The mind remembers pain and naturally tries to avoid experiencing it again. If someone has been betrayed, they become suspicious. If they have been rejected, they become hesitant. If they have experienced heartbreak, they begin protecting themselves from every situation that resembles the past. While this instinct may reduce immediate discomfort, it also closes the door to genuine connection. A heart that is completely protected is often a heart that cannot fully receive. This is why spiritual wisdom becomes so essential. Faith does not ignore the lessons of the past, but neither does it become imprisoned by them. Faith acknowledges pain, while refusing to let pain become the architect of the future. There is a profound difference between learning from experience and allowing experience to control every decision you make. Wisdom remembers. Fear repeats. One prepares you for a better future. The other convinces you that the future can never be different from the past. Imagine tomorrow presenting you with an unexpected conversation. Nothing spectacular happens. There are no signs in the sky, no voices from heaven, no dramatic confirmation, just two people crossing paths at what seems like an ordinary moment. It would be easy to dismiss it. It would be easy to rush away, remain distracted, or convince yourself that nothing important is happening. But what if the significance of the moment depends less on what you see and more on how present you are? We live in an age of constant distraction. Many people are physically present but mentally absent. They are thinking about yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's worries while completely missing today's opportunities. Yet every meaningful relationship begins with presence. You cannot truly connect with someone if your attention is divided. Presence is more than being in the same place. It is offering someone your focus, your respect, and your willingness to genuinely listen. There is also another obstacle that quietly influences our decisions: pride. Pride often disguises itself as independence. It whispers that asking questions makes you look weak, that showing interest makes you appear vulnerable, or that waiting for someone else to make the first move is safer. But pride isolates, while humility builds bridges. Some of the greatest blessings in life are received only by those willing to take a step they cannot completely control. This does not mean abandoning discernment. Faith is never recklessness. It is entirely possible to be open-hearted while remaining wise. Discernment allows you to evaluate character without becoming cynical. It enables you to welcome new people without surrendering your values. The goal is not blind trust. The goal is a balanced heart, one that is neither naive nor hardened. If tomorrow truly carries a divine appointment, Remember that God's guidance often comes after your willingness to move, not before it. Think of the countless moments in Scripture where people were asked to take the first faithful step before they understood the entire journey. The path became clearer as they walked it. In the same way, you may not receive complete certainty before every conversation or every opportunity. Sometimes clarity follows obedience. That means your responsibility is not to control the outcome. Your responsibility is to control your attitude. Walk into tomorrow with peace instead of anxiety. Replace assumptions with curiosity. Exchange fear for faith. Speak with kindness. Listen with intention. Be fully present in every encounter, because you never know which ordinary moment God has chosen to make extraordinary. And if nothing remarkable seems to happen tomorrow, do not let disappointment steal your confidence. Divine timing is not measured by your expectations, but by God's wisdom. The habit of living with openness, integrity, and faith will never be wasted, because those qualities prepare you for every opportunity heaven places before you. Destiny is rarely determined by the moment that arrives. It is determined by the heart that chooses to respond with faith when that moment comes.